Don't wait for proof before you move your hand. The things you hope for, the things you can plan. Take the first action where the evidence is there. For the reality you're seeking must start from within. Your belief is the blueprint, commit to the side. Start building the future that lives in the light.
Hello and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a single really profound verse and what it means for how we build our lives. We're calling this the architecture of faith. So let's just start by letting these words sink in. Faith means being sure of the things we hope for and knowing that something is real even if we do not see it. Right away, this definition seems to run completely counter to our modern, evidence-first world, doesn't it? And that's exactly what makes it so powerful. It's not just describing a feeling, it's laying out a whole framework for living, an entire architecture for how we can approach reality itself.
So here's how we're going to break this down today. First, we'll look at what the source calls the core duty of hope. Then, we'll see how this principle meets practice out in the real world. From there, we'll walk through a framework for reflection, and we'll wrap up by looking at your defining choice.
Okay, so let's jump into our first section, the core duty of hope. You know, we often think of faith as a private, personal thing, something we just hold inside. But what's so fascinating is how the source material reframes this. It suggests that faith isn't just an option, but a fundamental ethical responsibility. It's a duty we have, a way of being that we're actually called to live out. So what does this duty actually ask of us? Well, it's a commitment to live with trust and hope in what is still unseen. It's about consciously shaping our actions right now, our decisions, our character, based on a future reality that we are confident in, even without any physical proof. The source gives this beautiful analogy. Think about the simple, profound trust a young child has in a parent. That child doesn't ask for a business plan or proof of future security. They just trust. They trust in the parent's love and character. This verse is suggesting our faith is meant to be that same kind of relational trust. It's the very foundation of our connection to the unseen.
So now let's see how this idea actually works in the real world. This brings us to our second section, principle meets practice. Because let's be honest, it's one thing to understand an idea, but it's something else entirely to see it in action, especially when it goes against our common assumptions. This is where we make the shift from just seeing with our eyes to living by a vision. On one side, you have the conventional wisdom that really runs our world. Seeing is believing. It's practical, it's evidence-based, and it demands proof before you do anything. It's the logic of a spreadsheet, right? It's safe and it's sensible. But the principle of faith on the other side, it flips that whole script. It says believing is seeing. It suggests that some realities, some futures, will never even exist unless we first have the courage to believe in them. It doesn't wait for proof. It acts in a way that helps create the very reality it hopes for.
And this isn't just some abstract theological concept. It's actually incredibly practical, and you can see it all throughout human history. I mean, think about it. Every big achievement in art, science, social justice, you name it, it all starts with a dream that at the very beginning probably seemed completely impossible to everyone else. Faith, in this sense, is the engine that turns that dream into reality. It's the conviction you need to take that first step.
So let me tell you this story from the source material. It's a great example. Over 40 years ago, a pastor stood in front of this tiny group of people and shared a vision that, by any rational measure, was just absurd. He described a future church on 50 acres of land, serving 20,000 people. And this was in Orange County, California, one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. The source says people in the room actually laughed out loud. It was so unbelievable that even he laughed. It was, by all conventional wisdom, impossible. And yet, that vision, that unseen reality, became the blueprint they started building their lives around.
And that story just perfectly captures this core idea. Nothing happens until someone believes it's possible. The belief had to come first. The action followed the conviction, not the other way around. That vision of a 50-acre campus existed in the realm of faith long before a single shovel ever hit the dirt. And it's so important to see that this idea isn't just for a spiritual context. It's a universal pattern. Think about the entrepreneur in their garage, totally fueled by a belief in a product nobody gets yet. Or the artist working for years on a masterpiece, driven by an internal vision, long before anyone offers to buy it. Or the community leader fighting for a change that everyone says is a lost cause. They're all, in their own way, architects of faith. They're all operating on the principle that belief has to come before the evidence.
And this brings us to a really tough modern-day dilemma. We live in a world that wants proof before it gives support. Investors want to see the data, institutions want the prototype. So the question becomes deeply personal for anyone with a dream. In a world like that, where do you find the courage to even start, when all you have to show for it is your belief? And that question leads us right into our next section.
So this brings us to our third section, a framework for reflection. This is really an invitation for you to pause and apply these ideas yourself. So whether you use a pen and paper or just your thoughts, think of this as a moment to map out your own architecture of faith.
You know, before we can build towards the future, it really helps to look at the foundation we're already standing on. A lot of times, our own lives hold the very evidence we're looking for. So first, let's just take a look at the past. So take a moment with this question. What's one thing you once thought was impossible that you have now seen accomplished? Could be in your life or someone you know, something that just felt insurmountable at the time. Let's just pause and think on that. Okay, so having acknowledged the past, let's turn our attention forward. Let's look to the future, to the dreams and hopes that are taking shape in your heart and mind right now. Ask yourself this: what is one dream you're trusting will be turned into a reality? Try to name it. Be specific. What is that hope you're holding on to, that thing you can't see yet but you believe is real? Let's take another moment.
And for this last part of our reflection, we have to be really honest. Building an architecture of faith means acknowledging the things that could challenge it. We have to be willing to look directly at the obstacle, to name the challenge to our belief without looking away.
So the final question is this: what is your biggest fear when it comes to the vision God has given you for your life? What's that nagging voice of doubt that tells you it's impossible or you're not good enough? Be honest with yourself here. Naming that fear is often the very first step to disarming it.
And that brings us right to our final section, your defining choice. This is that crucial moment where understanding has to turn into action. It is, like the title says, the very first step an architect has to take, moving from the blueprint to the building site.
So let's just recap for a second. We've talked through the principle that believing can be a form of seeing. You've taken a moment to identify your dream, and you've honestly named the fear that's standing in the way. All the pieces are now on the table. The foundation, the blueprint, the potential obstacle, it's all right there in front of you.
So everything leads to this moment. We've explored the idea, we've looked at real-world examples, you've reflected on your own journey, and it all comes down to a single powerful choice. And that choice is yours and yours alone.
So I'll leave you with this one defining question. Knowing your dream and also knowing your fear, which path will you choose? Will you build your life based only on the certainty of what you can already see around you? Or will you take that first step of the architect and start building based on the possibility of what you can believe?
Don't wait for proof before you move your hand. The things you hope for, the things you can plan. Take the first action where the evidence is there. For the reality you're seeking must start from within. Your belief is the blueprint, commit to the side.